For most of human history, the most dangerous thing you could do when you got sick was go see a doctor. That's not a joke. That is a statistical fact. For roughly 2,000 years, the person whose entire job was keeping you alive was actively making you worse. And the part that makes this genuinely terrifying, they knew patients were dying. They just thought it meant the treatment was working. So today, we're going to talk about the medicines that killed more people than the diseases they were supposed to cure. Not because the doctors were stupid. That's the easy answer, and it's wrong. They weren't stupid, they were confident. And that's significantly more dangerous. Let's start with bloodletting, because this one lasted an absolutely embarrassing amount of time. The idea was simple: you're sick, so you have too much blood. Remove the blood, remove the sickness. This made sense to people for over 2,000 years. From roughly 500 BC through the mid-1800s, if you walked into a medical practice anywhere in Europe, there was a solid chance someone was going to open a vein and drain you into a bowl. Hippocrates recommended it. Galen built an entire theory around it, and for 20 centuries, nobody thought to check whether it actually worked. The logic was beautiful in its wrongness. Patient gets bled, patient feels weak and dizzy. Doctor interprets weakness as the disease leaving the body. Patient either recovers on their own and the bloodletting gets credit, or patient dies, and the doctor concludes they just didn't bleed enough. There is no outcome in this system where bloodletting fails. Every result confirms the theory, which for context is the exact opposite of how medicine is supposed to work. George Washington, first president, survived a revolution, crossed the Delaware in winter, died in 1799 after his doctors drained roughly 40% of his blood in a single day. He had a throat infection. His doctors removed about 2.4 liters of blood in under 12 hours. His throat infection did not improve. He did, however, stop complaining about it because he was dead. Now, here's where it gets worse. Mercury, also known as quicksilver, also known as the thing that dissolves your internal organs. Doctors in the 16th through 19th centuries prescribed mercury for essentially everything. Syphilis, mercury. Depression, mercury. Constipation, mercury, which, to be fair, did solve the constipation problem, along with several other problems, like having a functioning jaw. The treatment for syphilis involved rubbing mercury paste directly into your skin, or inhaling mercury vapor, or swallowing mercury pills. The side effects included excessive drooling, we're talking liters per day, your teeth falling out, your gums dissolving, kidney failure, and in many cases, death. Doctors cataloged these side effects carefully. They observed them, wrote them down, and concluded that the mercury was working. The drooling meant the disease was leaving. The teeth falling out meant the poison was being expelled. The patient dying meant they came in too late. If this sounds like a video game where you're taking damage from your own healer, that's because it basically was. Your HP was going down. Your support was actively griefing you. And the whole server agreed this was the meta. But nothing quite captures the spirit of confident medical self-destruction like the early 20th century. In 1918, a company called Bailey Radium Laboratories started selling Radithor. Radithor was distilled water with radium dissolved in it. It was marketed as an energy drink, a cure for impotence, and a general health tonic. It cost about $1 per bottle, which in today's money is roughly $15 per glass of radioactive water. The most famous Radithor customer was a wealthy socialite and amateur golf champion named Eben Byers. He started drinking it in 1927 on his doctor's recommendation. He liked it so much, he drank approximately 1,400 bottles over the next 3 years. By 1931, his bones were literally disintegrating. His jaw fell off. His skull was riddled with holes. The Wall Street Journal ran a headline that, to be fair, was pretty concise about the situation. When he died, his body was so radioactive they had to bury him in a lead-lined coffin. 50 years later, they exhumed him for testing. Still radioactive. Here's the thing. Radithor wasn't a scam in the traditional sense. The people selling it genuinely believed radiation was a health breakthrough. Marie Curie had won 2 Nobel Prizes. Radioactivity was the most exciting scientific discovery of the era. If radiation could do all these incredible things, obviously it could also cure your back pain. The logic made sense. The data did not. But nobody was checking the data. Meanwhile, in 1898, a German pharmaceutical company developed a new product from diacetylmorphine. They tested it on their employees. The employees reported feeling heroic, so the company named it Heroin and started selling it as a cough suppressant and a non-addictive alternative to morphine. That company was Bayer, the same company that makes your aspirin. They marketed heroin specifically for children with coughs. There were heroin cough drops. There were heroin teething syrups for babies. The packaging had pictures of happy children on it. To their credit, it did suppress coughs. It also suppressed breathing, consciousness, and eventually life. But the coughs stopped. So technically, a win. Now, what ties all of this together isn't that these treatments were bad. Obviously, they were bad. What ties it together is why they lasted so long. And the answer is the same every time. The logic system was self-reinforcing. Bloodletting worked because failure was impossible in the model. Mercury worked because side effects were interpreted as progress. Radithor worked because radiation was the frontier of science. Heroin worked because it immediately stopped the symptom. In every case, doctors weren't ignoring evidence. They were interpreting evidence through a framework that could not produce a negative result. Every outcome confirmed the theory. Patient improves. Treatment worked. Patient gets worse. Treatment wasn't aggressive enough. Patient dies. Started too late. There is no entry in this flowchart for the treatment itself is the problem. This is not ancient ignorance. This is a design flaw in human reasoning. It has a name. It's called confirmation bias, and it's the single most dangerous cognitive error in medicine, engineering, finance, and pretty much every field where being wrong kills people. You start with a belief. You interpret all new information as supporting that belief, and the belief becomes stronger the more damage it does. And here's the moment where the comfortable distance of history starts to shrink. In 1949, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to Antonio Egas Moniz for developing the lobotomy. The procedure involved pushing an instrument through the eye socket and into the frontal lobe, then swirling it around. Roughly 50,000 Americans received lobotomies between the late 1940s and mid-1950s. The inventor got a Nobel Prize. The patients got irreversible brain damage. Some of them are still alive. The lobotomy wasn't medieval. It wasn't ancient Egypt. It was your grandparents' generation, and the doctors who performed it were the best trained physicians of their era, working in the most advanced hospitals, publishing in the most prestigious journals. They were certain they were helping. We like to think we've moved past this. That modern medicine, with its double-blind studies and peer review and regulatory oversight, has eliminated the pattern. And it's true, we've built systems to catch exactly this kind of error. But the pattern didn't come from bad systems. It came from human confidence, from the absolute certainty that you are helping, even as the evidence piles up that you are not. The treatments changed. The logic trap didn't. We didn't become smarter. We built better guardrails. And the distance between those guardrails and the next confidently wrong idea is a lot smaller than most people think. But the real question isn't why doctors got it wrong for 2,000 years. It's why your brain is still running the same faulty software, and that's a whole other problem.